Some conversations will be mind-blowing and you'll sit there and you'll have the most profound change. So Lou, welcome to 52 Conversations. Thanks for taking the time to come and have a chat with me. How are you doing?
I'm good, or at least I think I'm good.
Is that, we just did this off air, we did the we think we're good, and I think that's exactly the same answer, that really if the majority were being honest and truthful, they would say think, and then there would be a pause with the question. I think so it's been a while since we caught up, so one of the things I want to do though is for you to introduce yourself as who you are to anyone that's listening that doesn't know you. So, because I would do a rubbish job at that, and you can sell yourself really well as who you are. So over to you.
All right. So blessings to whoever would be seeing this. I hope that you think you are doing well too. I am Lou Lyons. I am from the Twin Island state of Trinidad and Tobago. I am one of the founding members of a musical band called Freetown Collective. That's what I do. I'm a full-time artist, which extends to music production, music arrangement, scoring films, and also being the musical director of the band.
So a wicked creative. So my finding of you guys, I think I was truly blessed. I ended up coming to Trinidad to work with some clients. I found myself going to an amazing yoga class with Troy Hadid, and was kind of blown away by his intuitiveness, or so it seemed, of the work that I've been doing with my clients, because he seemed to be echoing everything for them to hear in the class with me. And I was like, had they bugged their house? Was he listening? And then getting into conversation with him, and then the people that I'm with, they mentioned you guys. So then I did some research, and then I listened to some music, and the rest, as they say, is history. It kind of, you guys, the band, you literally just spoke to something really intuitive within me. You felt and you feel so connected to truth, to integrity, to sharing messages. And I know some people will go, oh, that sounds really woo-woo, but that's exactly what it felt like. And then of course I was really lucky enough to be putting together my little thing called Bliss, and I said to him, little thing yeah, this little thing Bliss, and I was like, we need to get this band. And I sent him some of your stuff, and he was like, okay, cool, they can come. And that kind of, I mean, you made the second Bliss the success that I wanted to build on. And the way that you guys showed up, you were so embracing of the way that we were doing what we were doing. And I think it was was it your first time in Antigua? Am I right in saying that?
Very first, and I have not been back since. So I need to fix that.
Yes. We tried. This whole world thing that went on kind of stopped the second plan, didn't it?
Yeah.
But maybe that's a good place to start, because I know that when you were in Antigua, you all seemed to really enjoy Antigua, the parts of it that you got to see, and maybe you can share some of the whys about that.
Well, doing the music that we do. One of the fortunate things that happened to us, let's say in the first couple months of us being a band, we were booked to do a gig in London at an event called Speaking Of at the Tabernacle. And we met so many people from the Caribbean diaspora there. We were even invited back to dinner at someone's home. And it was just beautiful. I mean, in this one living room, there were Bajans, there were Grenadians, there were Vincentians, there were Guyanese, there were a few Trinis. Like, we were actually sitting in the Caribbean, and we have never felt that before. because we
Wow.
didn't do extensive traveling through the Caribbean before. And we were saying to each other, why does it take a trip to London to appreciate the Caribbean? So from that moment onward, whenever we had to travel to any of our Caribbean sister isles, we made a point of it to connect with people and to connect with the land itself, because it feels like a family reunion. There is a connection that is indescribable. You're meeting people you've never met before, but we don't feel like strangers. So that was definitely something we felt in Antigua. It felt like family immediately.
Yeah, it's cool. So do you think that's a literal, physical, energetic connection that is intrinsically there within you?
Yeah, I think it has to do a lot with science. I think it has a lot to do with the actual physics of the place. There is a common vibration on the ground, in the trees, in the wind, in the sea, and that in turn affects the people who live there. So when we get introduced to people, you have been affected by the same frequencies that we have been affected by. So there isn't a lot of adjustments energetically that need to happen before we hit it off.
Yeah, I guess if energetically our vibes are connected and we're literally coming from the same song sheet, for want of better words, then we're instantly connected. And I mean, one of my things straight away with you guys, you're all so humble, you're all so happy. I mean, hopefully we looked after you as best as we can or could at the time. But I know literally everybody that met you, from the staff in the I mean, I think that was one of the big things. I'm going to say this actually. The staff in the hotel were just blown away by how friendly you were to them. You know, that you weren't looking at them as if they were hotel staff. You were looking at them as the humans that they are.
And that's important. It's important to have an intention to be your best self. And I mean, you were speaking about Troy earlier on, and one of the things that drew us together with Troy is we kind of have the same notion of mindfulness. This deliberate way of living and thinking, this deliberate way of being in the moment and absorbing all that it has to give, all that it has to give. And that includes, you know, having conversation in a taxi with somebody you've never met before. That includes asking your server, well, how was your day? How long have you been doing this? What's the best thing on the menu? Why are you suggesting that? Is that your personal bias or not? And some people could see it as just making conversation on the surface, but you never know what happens when you peel back the layers. And that's just what it is, being in the moment so fully and being so indulgent in what is happening that you want to peel back the superficial layers and be surprised at what life can afford you.
I think that's really interesting. And the word that's resounding in my head is intention. It's the intentionality of how we approach every single thing that we come to. This morning, I was out on my bike again, and I was re-listening to a podcast, Rich Roll, who you may or may not have heard of, with Light Watkins. And it was just, Light Watkins just kept saying this thing, you know, if we seek for the intention in every single interaction, even if it's potentially a bad interaction, there's something there for us to gain from it. And if there was ever a time for us to have been in that time, the last year and a half, I guess almost a year and a half, has surely shown us that, hasn't it? But, you know, the way that you speak, so how did you become this version of yourself? Or do you think it's something that was born in within you? Were you always intrinsically kind of affected by the way people show up, by energy, by reading those kind of signals? Was it part of your growing?
That's a good question. To answer that question would also be to reveal how important family is, how important being, if you are a parent, how much you are responsible for what happens in the world. Like you are literally, we are literally, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but we are literally cookie cutters. We shape little human beings into what they're going to carry with them for the rest of their lives. And God forbid they see the need to reshape themselves while they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s. That could be catastrophic.
Yeah.
But a lot of who I am has been impressed upon me by my parents. They gave me some early tools to navigate through life with, and I dare say I hit the ground running with certain ideas. And one of the ideas that I've always had with me, and obviously that tool opened up a whole other world for me, was treat people as people. The golden rule, do unto others as you would like them to do to you.
Yeah.
I just thought it was learning to be nice.
Yeah.
But as you grow older, you realize that this is a literal currency to be used to unlock the best life that you can have. If you treat people the way you would want to be treated, you're going to forge some relationships with people who are going to give you gifts and gems that you could not have foreseen. You're going to build bridges with people that if you approach that person or that situation with any amount of prejudice, you would have been dismissive and you would have missed out on something that would have impacted your life forever. So there have been a lot. I mean, I've lost count at this point in time, but I have had a lot of encounters with people, some casually, some a bit more intimately, and have literally changed my life forever. And that's because immediately we saw each other as people.
Yeah. So you were open to anything that was there to be shared.
Yes, indeed.
Cool. So you were born in Tobago?
Yes, I have.
I was like, I'm sure he said originally when we were chatting. So tell me a little bit about life growing up in Tobago. I mean, look at that big smile. It's like your home island, and then you're just beaming. So is there this real love for Tobagos?
Oh man, home is home. Now, Trinidad and Tobago is a twin island state, and the worst mistake one can make is to assume that they are the same, because they're absolutely not. Trinidad is, without doubt, the more sophisticated sibling. And that's because of the historical economics of Trinidad, the discovery of oil. A lot of industrialization happened to Trinidad pretty early. Mm-hmm. But Tobago also historically used to feed Trinidad through agriculture and I mean, some of the rest of the Caribbean. People may not know, but at one point in time, some of the best chocolate came from the island of Tobago. Tobago has some very exclusive species of cocoa. So Tobago has always been agricultural, pastoral, agrarian. All of these words can describe how Tobago sustained itself very early on. As a matter of fact, the word Tobago is a derivative of tobacco. And that was one of the first crops, planted and exported commercially when Tobago was owned by European powers. But Tobago is so tight-knit. Tobago is so community-driven. Tobago is so based on personal connections that some might see that the very quality of Tobago might be resistant to change, might be a bit slow to acclimatize to technology and so on. But within all of that is a very intuitive place. It's a place where you learn to communicate with and through nature. So I was growing up in Tobago, but always had dreams of leaving Tobago. Sad to say. You know, I always had these dreams of being
to leave home though, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially if there's a dream and there is no reference for that dream at home. You know, you don't want to hurt anybody by leaving home, but there's a bug in you that you have to obey. And that's what it was for me. But growing up, I would have these encounters with fishermen, with farmers, with people who worked with nature. And they had these amazing stories of how they would just come by the knowledge that they have.
Yeah.
No one taught them anything. They didn't read these things in books. They didn't have YouTube videos to watch. And that very early in my childhood gave me a respect for nature. And it also made me a student of nature up to this point. So when I came to Trinidad, I realized that this is a major difference. Like Trinidad has just always been industrial for a lot of Trinidadians. Right. So they don't necessarily immediately tap in to communicating with the land and through the land. That's something that's very Tobagonian.
Yeah. So I all the way through that, I was kind of thinking then that, so you said that maybe it's felt that there's a resistance for Tobago to move forwards. But maybe that is based on because they want to hold on to this intuitiveness, this connectedness that they have. And whether they're doing that consciously or unconsciously, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that it has brought us a certain level of satisfaction and a certain level of happiness, and by extension, a certain level of contentment. So the older ones definitely have been slower to accept change, because they have achieved a certain level of Zen. You know, why do we need this? We are happy, we are sustained, we have what we need. But it would be the younger, more rebellious Tobagonians like myself that would say, hey, but we can have both. You know, we can have a hybrid.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. It's made me think about two of the friends that I have in Antigua, and they do some farming in the middle of nowhere. And my regular Sunday thing has become when I'm there is to walk to them, and they literally live in the middle of the land in this tiny little shack that fits 2 sunbeds, and they cook outside on the stove and they farm their land, and their land is exceptional. There is not a weed or anything that shouldn't be there. And they're so peaceful. They have no running water. They have no electricity. And every time I go there, we have these conversations that almost make me feel like I know nothing, even though sometimes I think, oh, I know quite a lot. I'm quite learned and I'm intuitive. And then I'm like, no, you still want so much, Janice, because look at the way these guys are living. Do you know what I mean? And there's something. And they actually have both gone through metamorphosis where they were caught up in the rest of the world. One of them ultimately says if he hadn't left that world, then he wouldn't be here anymore. So maybe that's the awakening. But there's something about the simplicity and equally the connection to the earth, to the ground, to what I say would be Mother Earth, literally, that grounds us. I love that idea of you talking about a hybrid, though. You know, and how can we bring our elders? I mean, I'm sat at my mum's home at the moment, and I can remember sort of saying to her, I need to get you an iPad, Mum. And she said, well, I'll never be able to use that. And I said, well, you're going to have to learn to use it, because then we can speak every day wherever I am and you'll love it. And now, of course, she wouldn't be without it. Yet there are still so many things that she'll say, oh, no, I can't do that. So it's how do we coerce them into the things that we know will be good for them? Guess that's my way of saying it, because really that's what we have to do. We have to say
we have to gently tug them forward. One of the ways in which myself and the co-founder of Freetown Collective, Muhammad Mawakil, have been actively trying to do that is by, one, proving to them that we are that we are diligent students.
Okay.
I think that's one of the things elders respect. Elders respect diligence. So even when they don't understand your youthful motivation for things, even when they can't see it, they would like to entrust their knowledge, and they would at some point want to entrust their bodies, their themselves into the care of younger ones who they believe are diligent.
Okay.
So one of the first things we attempt to do is to really sit at their feet and learn. We have a handle on what's coming. That's basic evolution. Life has been preparing us for what is coming. So we kind of have our fingers on the pulse of the present and a little bit of what is to come. What we really need to do is learn the past so that we know what we're doing with this alchemy. What are we fusing the present with? What elements of the past are the critical ones that we need to preserve? And once they kind of believe that, yeah, those younger folks, these ones actually respect the thing, they are more amiable to us coming forward and saying, well, grandpops, you need to at least have WhatsApp on your phone. Yeah. At least.
Yeah. That was really interesting because you used the word that was resonating in my mind when you were using the word diligence. I was in my mind, I was saying respect. They want us to show our respect to them. And then paradoxically, we need them to respect us for who we are and where we're journeying as well, right? And I think sometimes that gets lost, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Because they've had more time to be steep in their ways.
And they become so stubborn, right? And you're sort of saying, you know, we can find ourselves saying things and it's coming from a place of love sometimes and understanding and knowledge that they don't necessarily have. And again, it's like, it is almost that coercing. How do we coerce them in the nicest possible way and then still take all the learnings? I mean, because I'm here with my mum, I'm watching her and she's out in her garden and she's an amazing grower of food. And it's fabulous because I think I'm so envious that she's so, the word that you use, she's so diligent in it. She loves the earth. She loves the food that she's planting. And you can see that energy. And I just think, wow, if we had all of our children here together now, these are the things that we need to be sharing, right, to take forwards into this future where we have this wonderful technology, but actually we're kind of killing the very Mother Earth. How can we share all of those things?
Wow. Yeah. And I guess this to me is where diligence comes in, because to me diligence kind of goes a bit beyond respect, because diligence is resilient. It sticks to it. It sees the challenge and it does not give up. It keeps searching for an answer. To me, in diligence, the commitment is to the outcome. And if we are diligent, we will always be students of the universe. We'll always be students of Mother Earth. And we would listen when we are doing something that is dangerous and damaging and unsustainable, even if our intentions towards doing it is good. So diligence will help, is a critical tool when we are in our moral dilemmas. Like we want to pull society forward, but at what expense? Yeah. We want to embrace development and advancement, but at what cost?
Yeah. It's made me think, how do we teach that? How do we teach that? And I find myself very much as I'm waiting for my baby to have her first baby. And my brain is kind of channeling all this, wow, what's she bringing this baby into? And what's it going to be like in 20 years and 30 years? And how do we teach them these things that, you know, some of us have been through real pain to learn the things that we've learned. And how do we share that? It's
A
quite
lot of my
scary.
yeah, I mean a lot of my big lessons came from little things. And when I look back at it, I am grateful that I have an older brother. I'm grateful that I still have a father and I still have a mother. And all three in their own ways were very curious about life, were very committed to their own discoveries. And they introduced me to early ideas by answering my little questions with little but provoking answers. I think many times, and now I'm speaking also as a father, many times I thought that the way to pass on lessons to my daughter would be to have, these elaborate charts and maps and just dump all this information, everything that I know, you have to know.
Take this.
And it's not really that. It's when she comes with her very simple questions of things that are very important to her world. Yeah. How do I find ways of putting her on to information that would spark her curiosity and ignite her travel?
So it's the relevance. It's the relevance from you to her. So how old is your daughter, out of curiosity?
She is now 12. She's going on 13.
Is she like 12, 13 going on 20? Because she's a girl.
Thankfully not 20, but more like 12, 13 going on 16.
Cool. So, I mean, girls can be really interesting. So I only have one daughter and we are so different in so many ways. So I am the wilding. I am definitely the youngest one.
It's clear. It is clear.
It's so funny. And then sometimes she's so serious. Then she's so like me. And I just find it fascinating, and sometimes her husband will tease me and say, yeah, is she going to wake up when she's 37 and she's going to run away like you, Janice? And I'm like, I ran away at 16 to start with. So, you're doing well. But I think, and then as we sit with the generations, we see, so I'm spending all this time with my daughter, I'm spending all this time with my mother, and we're talking about my father who passed last year at the beginning of all of this. And there's so many lessons for us to learn, and it really is. And I've really started thinking about actually putting these learnings into, I don't know, my journaling or voice recordings or things, so that things don't get lost, if that makes sense. Because, exactly as you said, some of your biggest learnings might have come from the smallest thing, not necessarily the thing that you thought you were going to get the learning from, right?
Yeah. And you said something that's so important. And there are going to be junctures in life when you're going to get a key. And many times we think of keys as unlocking doors to move forward. But that's in a very tangible, practical, very linear way.
Yeah.
But life and knowledge is a bit more messy and a bit more dynamic than that. I have learned that keys also unlock things in your past, in reverse. So you get this key in this moment in time and it allows you to move forward, but then it also ripples back and make everything make sense. But you have to have things that don't make sense leading up to this key. Yeah. And one such thing for me was reading a book called Women Who Run with the Wolves.
Okay.
And
I haven't heard of that. Who's that by? Tell me more.
If you hold 1 second. I always keep this book handy. Okay. And it is by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, PhD. All right. So this book is this book is an amazing book. I think it's a book that every woman should read, but I think it's also a book that every man who has a daughter who wants to understand women and who wants to live more sustainably should read that book as well. Now, there's a chapter in this book that really demystifies and unlocks the group of women uh, phenomena. When you see old women huddled over and their children, and they seem to be saying these things in whispers, these secrets, and then all of them will erupt in some of the most raucous laughter known to man. And the men will be wondering, well, what are they speaking about?
Yeah.
And actually, the author was saying that these huddles are quite important, and it is important for little girls to eavesdrop on those meetings, because these meetings pack more information than going to school, than sitting in church, than what you and friends your age will have.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is part of answering your first question. Well, how do we teach?
Yeah.
Well, we have to have huddles. You know, I have to speak with other men my age, and I have to speak with other women my age in the same vicinity with my daughter and younger people.
Yeah, so that they hear. And
so I highly recommend this book, Women Who Run with the Wolves.
I'm going to look it up as soon as we're off, and it's going to be on my Kindle if I can get it on my Kindle.
You won't regret it. As a matter of fact, I am telling you, and I'm telling you this live on your program.
Okay.
It will explain a lot about you.
Okay.
I began reading, full disclosure, I began reading this in mid-2019, or a bit earlier. And this is before I met you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you came to pick us up in this manual Land Rover Defender, I said, this woman is a wild woman.
Yes.
When you read this book,
okay, cool.
I say no more.
Thank you. I'm ready to read it. It's really interesting. I'm going to take that all as compliments. It's interesting. It's been a real journey for me and many other people this last year. And I don't want to go into it, but clearly my pops died March the 25th, 2020, at the start of all of this. And what an insane journey it's been. Yet equally, I learned so much through not just the loss of him, actually through the essence of him, if that makes sense. And you know, my welding side and my not sticking to things and the way that he was. And I just think there's been so much learning. And something else I want to pick up on, and I haven't really talked about this openly, so this is full disclosure coming here. I did an ayahuasca ceremony in Antigua.
How was that?
Mind-blowing. Literally. But what was interesting, because when you were saying before about the keys, that sometimes you get a key and the key isn't for then, it's for a past time. It's going to give, and for me, so I'd always wanted to do ayahuasca. So then this opportunity came, and it seemed like the universe absolutely listened, because it was going to be my mother's birthday, March the 14th, her first birthday without my dad. And then it was going to be 2 weeks later, was going to be the anniversary of my dad's dying. And I can honestly say I was really worried about how I was going to be. I was back in Antigua.
Mm-hmm.
And if anyone has been following me, basically, I haven't stopped moving since my dad died. It's like literally hiking, cycling, yoga, hiking, just moving. And I got to this point, I thought, oh gosh, this is going to be a really tough time. And then I got this call, and it was like, we're doing an ayahuasca ceremony. Are you in? And I'm like, yep, no hesitation. Yes, I'm in. And without going into it too much, you know, the whole experience was transformational in terms of, as far as I'm concerned, it dealt with all the pain that I've had specifically in the last 14 months. It dealt with all my old pain, and it actually dealt, as far as I believe, with all my future pain. There is no future pain because there is nothing to be scared of. And the amount of learnings that I got through that experience have been literally transformational. But it was just really funny because as soon as you said about the key, I was like, yeah, that's another way to talk about that experience that you had, where it literally felt like all of this healing, all of these past unknowns, conversations that I had in the experience, in the medicine, where all these things have been dealt with. You know, there's nothing to be afraid of. There's only joy to have and learning. So yeah, really interesting. But I don't want to digress on that too much because this is our
Yeah, that's good. That's cool. That's good stuff.
You know, and all I can say to anyone, if anyone ever says to me, should I do ayahuasca? The answer is probably no if you're asking the question, because you know if you should. But yes, absolutely, you know, transformational in different ways, but also very opening. So I literally feel like I'm seeing things in different ways as well. And I'm much more, you know, it's like these conversations, people have been telling me for years, we want more of you, Janice. We want to hear the conversations. Because I always say to people, I'm so blessed. I mean, I met you guys. Some of the conversations that I've had with you in that short time literally was sending my brain off like this. You know, you and the girls, you're all, you know, different in your own ways, but so much knowledge and so much commitment to yourself, to humanity. And that's how it comes across to me, you know, and having the opportunity to share these conversations. I mean, we're halfway through this and I'm already thinking, Lou needs to come back about 5 times. Do you know what I mean? So take that that's obviously a compliment. So for a little bit of backstory, I guess, how did you come to Freetown Collective? Because weren't you doing journalism or something? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I started off doing journalism.
Yeah,
then
for me remembering.
Then journalism opened a door for me to do ethics, and while studying ethics I came across law, and then I said, all right, well, I don't want to do journalism anymore. So then I got into law, and while going to law school, I met Muhammad. Actually, I met Muhammad while doing journalism, and then we just didn't.
In Trinidad.
In Trinidad, yes. This is when I left Tobago to come to Trinidad to go to school.
Yeah.
So I met Muhammad. I always wanted to be a musician. Okay. So all the things that I have done was me actually running away from my purpose, because I didn't think it was possible. And I also didn't want my parents to die of broken hearts. So I just wanted to be a functional member of society, doing something I at least remotely love in any way, or wouldn't piss me off. So yeah. I liked writing, and I liked taking photographs. I liked crafting stories. So that is what pulled me to journalism. But then I saw Muhammad. My brother told me, well, if you like music, you should go to some open mics while you're in Trinidad. And I said, open mic, but where's that? Yeah. I was brutish. So then he took me to this open mic, and there was this young man with this big, well-oiled beard, and he was so prolific. I'm like, who is this man? I want to do that. But I also went with a poem prepared, and I performed, and he came up to me and said, you are the best thing I saw tonight. And I said, no, you are the best thing I saw tonight. And that turned out to be Muhammad. I didn't have a cell phone then, so there was no way for us to keep in contact, so we didn't. And while I was going to law school, I saw him again, and he was setting up chairs and a microphone. And I said, but wait. And I walked up to him and I said, you are that guy. And he said to me, wait, you are that guy. And then we linked up. So then we started doing, he was actually running an open mic at the University of the West Indies called We Speak. And that brought us back together. And I could tell that he always wanted to sing.
Right.
And he would have these songs that he would play on his guitar and sing in private. And there was a song called Love Transition. Had a different name then. And I said, you know what? I said, this is one of the best songs I have heard in my life. And I'm not even gassing you up. I'm not, yeah, this is well written.
This is truth.
Yeah, would you give me a verse? And he said, all right, well, let's try to write together. And we wrote that. It didn't really take off yet. And then there was this boy who came to Trinidad on a on a student exchange program. And I'm going to be raw here. He was probably one of the whitest boys I have ever seen. Like, there was no blending in. He stuck out.
Right.
And he walked up to Muhammad and I and he said, you know, I make beats.
Right.
And we kind of both looked at each other and laughed. And maybe he was anticipating that because he didn't take it personally in any way. And he said, no, I really make beats. Said, check out my MySpace. And we did. And he did make beats. No, those beats, wow. He had sampled a reggae song called Queen of the Universe by Jimmy Cliff.
Mm-hmm.
And we wrote a song called Mama Africa to that in 15 minutes.
Right. Wow.
It was that song that we performed once or twice in Trinidad with some spoken word that took us to London. And it was on the bank of the Thames on in Canary Wharf. One cold morning. I looked at Muhammad and I said, I cannot go back to Trinidad and do law practice. I can't, not after what we've done here. And he said the same thing to me, like this, what are we doing with our lives from this point onwards?
Yeah.
And so it was on the bank of the Thames that Freetown Collective was born.
Well, that's a good place to be born, right? Good place to be born, because look where you've gone since. So what year was that? Remind me.
That was around October 2010.
2010. So were the girls with you then?
No, they came.
Or not? That was just you two.
Yeah, they came along in 2015. So we had about 5 years without them. And those 5 years without them were rough years, to put it lightly.
Well, they were your learning and growing, right? And stretching, I guess.
Yes. In many ways, we were becoming men.
Okay.
In many ways, during those years, we were philosophically disagreeing with our fathers. Okay. We were disagreeing with our pastors and religious leaders. We were even disagreeing with parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
And the art made that interrogation so much easier, but still hard.
Yeah.
So by the time the women came, they came into a foundation. We knew what we wanted to say to the world. We had an idea of what our best selves would look like. And so we had a goal. We had a very clear goal in mind musically, but also a real life goal of who we wanted to be and how we wanted to represent that.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's something that came over to me really clearly was, you know, even if someone rocked up and offered you all the money in the world, if that wasn't going to be congruent to who you were and your message and what you want to say, then you weren't going to be taking the money, right?
No, ma'am.
So does that mean it's not really about the money? It's about the passion, the purpose, and the story and the legacy, I guess.
Yes, indeed. And in a very real way, if we pursue these virtues the right way, these virtues want to be sustainable to themselves. So they will point you to the resources. And sometimes the necessary resource is money. Sometimes it is not. Sometimes it is people. Sometimes it is places, things.
I think that's a really great way to explain that, because I think I was talking to another coach the other day, and I said, yeah, I'm not really so big on chasing the money. It's just not my thing. I said, you know, I've had so many people say, come and collaborate, or you should do this, or you should do that. And I'm like, but then I wouldn't be being my truth. Then I wouldn't be being this version of me that is the version of me that actually I'm pretty cool with. So, you know, I'll carry on, and you know, and I can look at some of those other people that I've grown up with, or peers or other people, and I'm just like, no, you couldn't pay me enough money to say that and to be that way, to be this version of authentic that is anything but authentic. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, why would you do that? It's not where it's at. Because I think if to a vast degree, if we look at the world and we base it on money, not necessarily are they the happiest people that have the biggest pots.
That is true. So, I know many people, my parents included, who have lived humbly their entire lives with an insane amount of contentment. And I also know some people who have had fiery ambitions to make money, and they've made money. And some of them, the money burnt them out, the money destroyed them in half of what their life expectancy would have been.
Yeah, the money is not necessarily the answer, is it? And I think that's a really interesting. I mean, it's definitely a message that I like to try and convey to my daughter. And she comes from a different space to me on that. She's very much like her father. It was all about the money. Money is everything. And I'm kind of like, actually, having done a vast quantity of my life married to that version, I'm like, you know, the money isn't everything at all. Actually, it's probably one of the least important things: happiness, love, joy, curiosity. You know, those are the things that kind of fire me up. But anyway, I'm digressing. Tell me what the journey of this COVID time has been for Freetown, and how you've all navigated that, because, you know, we were all set to have you back in Antigua for Aidan's big 50th birthday party, and you know, we were all set for that. He lost his father, actually. His father passed 5 days after mine. So, you know, the world has changed for so many people. How have you all been navigating that time? And I guess one of my big questions for you as well with that is, how much good stuff has it taught you? Because despite all the pain, the more conversations I have with people, the more we can actually start to say, do you know what, I've learned some really good shit about myself or people or life. And that's the thing that we need to be taking from this as we go forwards, the learnings. So there's lots of questions in there. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm keeping track of them all. One of the things that we are absolutely grateful for is we feel as though we've been given a cheat sheet.
Okay.
Heading into the pandemic. In October of 2019, I traveled to LA to do some work, and there are times when I do that travel pretty often, if not every year, every other year, and every time I come back with clearer focus, clearer vision, more motivation. Like I'm just able to put a lot of things in perspective. So Muhammad and I have been talking about doing soca songs, doing soca music, but on our terms.
Yeah.
And we never rushed it. We never rushed it because we felt as though there were necessary lessons that we needed to learn about ourselves and about our cultural space in order for us to understand, well, what on our terms even means,
What
right?
does that mean? Yeah.
Yeah, what does that look like? And coming back from LA, super driven, super focused, I felt as though I had better production skills, better engineering skills, and I just came back ready to work. I remember sitting with Muhammad and us drafting up the blueprint for our EP and saying, here, we are going to get this album done. Let's get into studio. Let's start writing these songs. Let's start recording. So from October 2019, Muhammad and I did not stop.
Okay.
We just went to work and kept working. Consequently, out of that, a song called Feel the Love came.
What a beautiful song.
Arguably, yep, with some assistance from DJ Private Ryan, awesome dude, and Sheriff, awesome dude. That was arguably the biggest song of Carnival 2020. We didn't know that that would have happened.
No.
But we had put so much stock into putting our best foot forward into that venture of being ourselves in Carnival, being ourselves in soca music, that we knew that something would have happened. So even on our management side of things, everything was prepared to go.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was prepared to take everything on tour and just work. So imagine seeing this, right? So October 2019, we're going. By the time we get to New Year's Day and we find that the song is picking up, wow, what is this? What is this? And then kind of a big explosion.
Yeah.
And then pandemic.
Yeah.
In that moment, we could have felt as though everything we've been working for crashed and burned. But I guess we had so much hype going into it that some of that energy, although we were very disappointed, some of that energy still wanted to keep going.
It carried through.
And yes, and some of that momentum gave us a pivot. And we said, listen, we have all of these plans that we have. What if we found a way to continue this momentum online? And I'm proud to say, coming from Trinidad and Tobago, Freetown Collective was the first to figure out how to do online concerts.
Yeah, and they were cool.
Yeah, so we felt as though like we can't even take credit for that.
No.
There was something in the universe that chose us to give us that early momentum to even keep the adrenaline so that we could deal with the disappointment and deal with the logistics of powering through pivoting online. That taught us everything that we needed to know.
Cool.
Janice, when I told you that our learning curve from March 2020 to December 2020 has been the highest it has ever been as a band, we couldn't see it. Like, we thought we would have to rebuild the whole superstructure of Freetown again because all this downtime, no performance time, people will forget us. But like I said earlier, some keys open the door backwards.
Yeah.
So even before doing soca, the nice wholesome music that you know,
Yeah.
we felt as though that somehow that music wasn't being treasured the way that we thought it was valuable. Like, people were going towards the more exciting stuff, people were choosing the more party stuff. But when there was no more partying, when people were actually forced to face their own shadow selves and there was nowhere to run, this online concert series actually revealed the equity of the music that we were making for all the years prior, not only to the people who were listening to the music, but to us.
Yeah. I was going to
To
say,
us.
to me, as soon as you're saying that, it feels like it made people lean into it more. Literally, just
Yes,
lean
it did.
into it.
It did. It did, because it comforted, it healed,
Yeah.
it created a space to unburden, to just let go. And many times Muhammad and I would call each other up and say, imagine if we had to keep going with music that didn't make sense for a time like this.
Yeah.
Forget not connecting with an audience. It would have literally destroyed us inside.
Yeah.
So the fact that we could have still worked very hard to create these online concerts, but we were being comforted in real time by the songs that we were singing.
Yeah.
We couldn't ask for better therapy than that.
No, that's true. That was your true connection, and literally your truth and your passion, your purpose, all coming through that, and
Yeah.
sharing that. That's awesome. So, dare I ask what 2021 looks like? Is it looking? What's it looking like for you? That, I mean, what stage is Trinidad in at the minute? Because I'm a bit out of the loop. Are you all free going around your business, or are you still on?
Well, we are currently in a limited state of emergency as we speak. There's a curfew from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Because our infection numbers have been going up. Our daily death rate has also been going up. And while 2020, the reality of the pandemic hit hardest around May, June, July, that of 2020, then is when people really realize that this thing is for real and the world will not be opened up anytime soon. This year caught people, including us, in a bit more complacent place. And these deaths have been shaking people up, have been testing our resolve, have been testing our faith, and have been testing our hope. But the good thing for Freetown Collective is, because the product for us has always been hope, we've made some really good connections between last year and now.
Cool.
So instead of us trying to get the message out on our own now we have some really, really awesome partners. And not only that, it has allowed us to find what our voice sounds like in this time. And what our voice sounds like in this time is, we have to be a lot more deliberate on how we fuse the music with real life purposes, real life goals, and real life movements. Because if the music is the theme song for mindfulness and meditation and finding one's strength, then we have to look and see, well, who is doing that work in the field as we speak?
Yeah.
And let's see if we could make the linkages between those soldiers and the music. And we've been able to do that with the IDB, Inter-American Development Bank, with the whole pivot movement. We were blessed to have a partnership to do the theme song for them. Trinidad and Tobago has been going through a terrible time. I mean, for years, but the pandemic has certainly revealed that gender-based violence is a real problem for us. So that has now become one of the forefront social challenges for us to lend some support to. And so we also have some partners. And the latest song that we released, Oshun, which is really about celebrating the divine feminine spirit and energy. And to hurt that is to hurt yourself. To hurt that is to hurt our sustainability as a people, as a tribe, as a species. And we've had associated brands, a company that has a lot of powerful, well-resolved women on staff and in management and in upper level management, gravitating to the message and really coming forward and saying, yeah, gender-based violence is not a poor woman's problem. It's an all woman's problem. And if it's an all woman's problem, it's everyone's problem.
Because at the end of the day, it's mothers, sisters, daughters, grandmothers, aunties, right? Everybody's connected to a woman.
Yep. Yeah.
It's really interesting to hear, though, that you forge those kinds of allegiances through the power of your music, right?
Yeah, because the music actually comes from, like we were speaking earlier, it actually comes from absorbing what life is giving you in the moment. And so much of that has to do with seeing people for who they are and encouraging people to show up as who they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Being their truth. So whilst you were talking as well, I was running this movie in my mind. If I need to see the movie of Freetown going around their business. Because I think, like, a fly on the wall, you just, the five of you going around, because clearly, different jobs as well, still doing different things whilst making music the main thing. It would just be really interesting to see how that comes together. I was watching a documentary the other night, and it just happens that it was about a guy who found medicine, i.e. the ayahuasca, but it was really interesting. So I've been watching lots of documentaries, and there's something really fascinating when you watch people doing the thing that they're most passionate about and most purposeful about, and you see the interactions that they have with the man on the street, the woman in the corner shop, and how that literally goes into everything that they put out that connects us, because that's what it's all about.
People are the real currency.
Absolutely.
People are the real currency. Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the thing between 52 conversations. I said to people, really, all I'm doing is being really blessed to share conversations that I find really interesting, because I know that when I talk to people, I get these. I mean, you've said several things that have just made my mind go, whoa, need to hold on to that. I need to go back to that later. I need to think about that. Something's happened. And if we can all sit and we can listen to people's stories, we get so much learning, and we can fill in the gaps for ourselves, can't we? Yet equally, the currency of your mind with the currency of my mind could create something beautiful without, I'm not necessarily thinking that now, but for sure it's going to happen. Something will come from that, and that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, we've been talking for an hour already, and I kind of
already.
I know. So I'm going to make you agree before we go off air that we're going to do another one of these for sure. And I would love
as many as you need, Janice.
There you go. Well, the thing is, I know people are going to love this conversation, so they're going to say, we want more, basically. So, I mean, you've dropped so much wisdom in today's conversation. If you were going to leave some words to help people, I don't know, just step into a new version of themselves, that a more purposeful version of themselves, and about being true, humble, whatever, what would your gift to them be? Because I know you've got words.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my words have been definitely heavily influenced by my mom, my mother. She's like a real life hero to me. And there's a proverb of hers that she always used to just say to me at the weirdest time. I swear this woman's tactic was to always spook me out of being idle.
Right.
When I was a younger boy, she always used to, at the most random times of the day, unprovoked, just walk up to me, watch me squarely in the eye and say, who you will be, you are now becoming. What is wrong with you, woman? And thank God I've lived long enough to see the wisdom in it, but to also understand it and to also share it. We often think of the final version of ourselves as a thing, a concept that we are working towards. And we always make it seem far away. Like when I get this job, I'll be closer to that, but it will take me 3 years to get there. That's a short-term goal. And I'll stay in that job and then I'll make supervisor in the next 2 years. So that's 5 years. That's my midterm goal. But that would get me my 401k annually. So that would get me insurance. And we keep calculating and we keep calculating. But the best of who I am happens today. Today, not tomorrow, not next week. And this is including all of the filth that I still have in me, all of the muck, all of the rough edges, all of that is still all of that is still an essential part of the recipe.
Excuse me, coffee.
But who you will be, you are now becoming that, like right now.
Absolutely.
The final form that you're going to take before you transition from here, all of that happens every single day. So don't wait. You okay? You need a glass of water?
I'm going to take a slurp of this. Sorry. It's this cold. It's put a frog in my throat. I am sorry. Sorry.
That's okay.
What you just said was absolutely spot on. So say your mother's words again, just for us to go out on.
Who you will be, you are now becoming.
I think that's perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice.
We'll speak again soon. Thank you.
I do hope so.